What we'll do now is talk about some general concepts that'll provide a kind of background for a more detailed discussion, which we'll do next hour. Just a couple of things about the nature of law in the United States and the nature of judicial proceeding. In the United States, we work on the basis of what is common law, what is known as common law. What is the common law? Common law refers to a series of decisions that has been made on a particular issue over a long period of time. If a cow jumps a fence and eats a farmer's corn in 1776, what did the court do about that? What decision did the court make? Now, in 1788, if the same thing happens, the court goes back and says, well, this happened in 17, whatever it was, earlier, 10 years ago. This is what the court said. We'll do the same thing. And then 10 years after that, there'll be a similar case. So they'll look back to two previous cases and they will say, all right, this is what has happened. This is the common law, as opposed to what you might call the code of law, which sits down, lists every offense, defines it very carefully, and then lists the penalties that should be applied in both cases. In the United States, the only state that uses a code is Louisiana, and that's because of its French origins and French background. They use what's called the Napoleonic Code. For the rest of us, we live under the common law, which means that precedent counts for everything. Now, just a bit of jargon here. A better word for precedent is stare decisis, S-T-A-R-E-D-E-C-I-S-I-S, stare decisis, stand by the decision. Okay? Stand by the decision. Which means that you can make the most wonderful case for something. You can have logic, you can have morality, you can have facts on your side, you can have everything possible going for you when you go into court. But if you can't relate it, express it, in terms of what courts have said about your particular issue in the past, you haven't got a chance. Now, that's bad, we could argue, because it prevents the introduction of new evidence, all right? Or you could say it's good because it provides continuity. It goes both ways. I ask you to decide what you think about that. But it is a fact of life. Stare decisis, stand by the decision. The law is very, very conservative. And I personally think that's not a bad thing, that it is. Courts certainly change their position. They change their position with respect to whether Negroes were property or human beings. We make these changes all the time. The court changed its decision about women voting. So we do get change. But there's a dialectic, there's a tension, there's a stress between the two, and that's what I'd like you to be aware of, okay? So stare decisis is a very, very important concept. Something else is, you can't just go to court on a whim, although there are those who would disagree with that. You have to have what is called standing in order to go to a court, which means many things. For our purposes, let's just say, you have to be able to demonstrate that you have been hurt that you have been affected in a negative way by an action, or that you are being affected in a negative way by a law. You have to have a reason for going to law. I would like very much to go to court and sue Carteret Community College and say, Moodle is causing me harm and should be abolished. Okay? I'd like very much to do that. But then the court would say, okay, how is it harming you? And I would tell them that it's causing me whatever it is that is causing me, and the court would properly laugh me out of existence. Or the court would laugh me out of the room. Okay? The point is, just because I PO'd, pardon me, about Moodle doesn't mean I can go and complain, go to take the college to court because of Moodle. There has to be, I have to have standing in order to do that. And in order to have standing, I have to demonstrate that I've been wronged, or that I've been righted, or that I've been affected in a major way. Okay, so we talked about common law, we've talked about codes, we've talked about precedent, stare decisis, we've talked about standing, and finally jurisdiction. That's a phrase that refers to the areas of concern that fall within the purview of a particular court. I can't go to the Court of Claims of the United States and, with a suit about a broken arm or having been bitten by a dog, because they don't have jurisdiction over that. That court does not have jurisdiction over that. Now let me just go off to the side here. We'll talk now about judges and their appointment. First, because it's important, we need to talk about how judges are appointed at the state level. There are three ways. Judges are elected for specific terms. Judges may be appointed for specific terms or for life. Or judges may be selected from a list which is supplied to the governor of individuals who have been vetted, who've been examined, and who are considered by various constituencies to be acceptable. Most judges in the states are in fact elected. The second largest number are in fact appointed. I think there's only one state, Missouri, that uses that third method that I mentioned. Now, at the national level, it becomes, I think, in many ways, far more complicated. It is also extremely political. Now, when I say the appointment of judges is political, I hope you are not shaking your heads and saying, yeah, it's all political. Because by now you should have learned, and I pray that you have learned, yes, it's political. Everything is political. Everything is political. It comes down to who has the power to get what he, she wants, when she wants it, and blah, 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 okay? Yes, it's political. That doesn't mean it's bad, because if something is political, it means it has been decided by that group of members of society that have the power to do that. That's the definition of politics. So don't write off the judiciary system because it's all political, okay? Please, don't do that. The president nominates federal judges. His nominees are confirmed, although in the last 2 decades they tend to be not confirmed by the Senate. But let's assume that the system works. how does the president go about how does the president go about making a nomination for a district judge or for an appellate court judge? What he does is he goes to the senators in the state, from the states in which the district is located. And he seeks their input, he seeks their recommendations. The senators, in turn, are political animals. They speak with party officials in their own states. They speak with members of state assemblies or state legislatures. And they come up with someone who is politically acceptable. Now, it's rare. In fact, I think it's only happened twice that a Supreme Court nominee has been rejected because he was judged to be, they're both men, because he was judged to be incompetent. At the district judge level, it happens more often, but most infrequently. It's rare for that. Because professional associations, the American Bar Association, state bar associations, rate these judges, and they produce a list of acceptable candidates, people who are professionally acceptable. Once you clear that hurdle, then I should have said this first. Once you clear the hurdle of competence, then it becomes extremely political. So the president always speaks to the senator or senators from the state in which the district is located. If the senator, this is called senatorial courtesy. If the senator does not agree or does not support a candidate for a judgeship, then the president, if he's smart, which has always been the case, not that they've all been smart, but that they have always followed this rule, the president rejects, finds someone else. So I don't mean to say that the senators control, or that appointments to federal district judgeships are controlled by the Senate and by the local politics, but they are strongly influenced by that. Again, I don't think this is necessarily bad. What you think, we'll talk about. You notice how we're talking about law, and I think because we're talking about law, I'm suddenly becoming very, very neutral about things. I'm going this and this and this and that, and leaving it up to you. That's an interesting factor, an interesting illustration of how the subject can influence the way we think about things. I don't know what that comes down to, but I thought I would mention it just in case. Now, suppose that there's a vacancy for a federal judgeship in a state, but the president is a Democrat and the senators are both Republicans. What happens then? Because we still have senatorial courtesy. Then it becomes a local political issue. Because in that case, what happens is the president goes to the members of the congressional delegation from that state, who are members of his own party, and consults with them. And then they have to work it out at the local level, and usually some kind of compromise is effected. Traditionally, that has been the case. It hasn't been such lately. And they work it out that way. But senatorial courtesy remains an exceedingly important criterion in the selection of judges. Senatorial courtesy is more than just saying, after you, my dear Alphonse, you have to, whatever you say, I'll do. That's not what it is. It's designed, it's a part of our political procedure. It's at least a convention. It's at least a norm. It's not a statute, but it's something that we do. And it is designed to see that federal appointments to the federal judiciary are made with due respect to, with some consideration, that is, of local needs and local preferences. Now, what does the president look at? Well, we've already said competence, and I think that really is not an issue. Some might disagree, but the most important influence is the record that the candidate has amassed over a period of public service. Our present Attorney General did not get a judgeship because of things he is alleged to have said about race relations. Now he's the Attorney General, which tells you something about the resilience of our system. That's meant to be a good comment. And so, let me put it this way. I was walking in Washington one day with a friend of mine who was an attorney, and we met one of his friends whom I didn't know, and she said, "Hey, Steve, I guess what? I'm going to be nominated to be a judge." And they talked, congratulations, blah, 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 blah. And we went on with our walk, and I said, "Well, when are you going to be a judge, Steve?" He said, "That'll never happen." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Because I don't speak out on public issues. I don't belong to associations in which I can make public statements. I don't have a record of statements on broad political issues that would bring me to the attention of anyone who would select a judge, in this case for the District of Columbia." So that should tell us something about what is important in the selection of judges. The next time we talk, I do want to say more about this. We have been tied up. Our government has been closed down because members of Congress cannot refuse to take action on presidential nominees. Republicans have done it to Democratic presidents. Democrats have done it to Republican presidents. It also applies to ambassadors and other appointments that require congressional approval. So we'll talk about that next time. In the meantime, I hope you'll spend some time talking about the issues and questions I raised for you today. Thank you.